portrait his pin. Okay, guys, once again, I welcome you to my lesson for today. So, obviously, based on the information that I've sent in the group, what we'll be focusing on in today's lesson is mainly to determine the equation of a quadratic function. So, guys, this will be the end of our lesson for this chapter. So next time when we'll be doing this chapter, we'll be solving exam type of questions. So our next lesson will be focusing on trigonometry. So in today's lesson, we'll be looking at determining the equation of a quadratic function. So what does it mean? Obviously, it means you will be given a graph or a function where you need to determine an equation. So I'm just going to be explaining using that information that I send in the group. So just make sure that you do have access to that information, or otherwise, if you don't at this point in time, you can just at a later stage watch this lesson again so that you fully understand. So I think what you can do, if on your screen there's somewhere you can just click on back and open that image. So I want to explain using that image that I send in the group. So just make sure that you are able to get to that image that I send in the group. So are you able to get to that image?
Yes, sir.
Okay, 100%. So let's have a look at the first one, which says given the x-intercepts and 1 point. So you could be given the x-intercepts and 1 point. Remember to mute your mic if you are not making a comment. Who's this? TK. Make sure to mute your mic 100%. So I want to explain all regarding x-intercept and 1 point. So remember, this is what you'll be given on a graph. So in a situation where you are given the x-intercept and 1 point, so this is the formula that you use. Y is equals to ax minus x1 close x minus x2. So it should be x-intercept over there. So that means, for example, there's going to be a Cartesian plane where you've got the x-axis and the y-axis. And in this case, let's say you've got a parabola, something similar to that. So remember, guys, the x-intercepts, that's where your parabola touches the x-axis. So this is going to be your first x-intercept, and this is your second x-intercept. So that's what it means when they say where you are given x-intercepts. So when it comes to 1 point, it could be any point along that function. For example, you might be given a, let's say for instance, that point over there, which is a point where this graph touches the y-axis. It could be a point somewhere there. It could be a point somewhere there. It could be any point along that function. So that's what it means by the first bullet there, where they say, in case if you are given the x-intercepts and 1 point, you just need to be aware that this is the first x-intercept, second x-intercept, and just 1 point along that function. So that's when you use this formula, guys. So before I move on to the next point, is there any question? Is there someone who wants to ask a question based on what I've explained so far?
No, sir.
Okay, 100%. So now the second bullet says substitute the values of the x-intercept. So let's have a look at what that means. So for example, you still have a Cartesian plane, you've got a function drawn over there. Let me just draw it nicely so that this example makes a perfect sense. So let's say we've got something similar to that. This is y, this is x, and then this is maybe the graph of g. That x-intercept over there, let's say, is -4, and that one there is a 2. And then from there, let's say maybe we've got that y-intercept over there, it's -5, just as an example, guys. So the second bullet under given x and 1 point, it says substitute the x values of the x-intercept. So obviously we are saying our first intercept is that one, our second intercept is that one. So when they say you substitute, this is where you substitute your first x-intercept, and this is where you substitute your second x-intercept. So a question to you guys, which values between -4, -5, -x are we substituting there on x1 and x2? Guys, are you still there? Okay, so I will explain that one. Hopefully, on the next problem that we'll be solving, you will confidently answer that question. So in this case, x1 and x2, it refers to the x values. So this is our x1, this is our x2. It also doesn't matter if you take that one as x1 and that one as x2, which means there you are going to substitute -4, and again there you are going to substitute 2. So that is what it means on the first bullet, where they say substitute the values of the x-intercept. And the third bullet says substitute the given point, which is not the x-intercept. So any point along that function except these 2 points, because you have already substituted there and there, you can just use any point. So we notice that we've got that point there where x it's 0 and then y it's -5. So this point, you substitute it there where you substitute your y value. So obviously this is x, this is y, meaning your y value is -5. What is your x value? Your x value is that x that you substitute there and there, which is 0, which is 0. So can you see, guys? You have substituted everything, and the only thing that you do not have is that A value. So what does it mean? It means in this case, that's where you solve for that value of A. As you can see on bullet number 4, where they say solve for A. Then, after you have solved for A, this is where you can now write the equation in that form of, for example, if it was the graph of f, then you say f of x, it's equals to ax squared plus bx plus c. So I will show you before the end of this lesson in terms of how you find the equation of a, a, a quadratic function and represent it in that format. So in today's lesson, that's what I want you guys to fully understand. So before I move to the second part where they say you are given the turning point and 1 point, is there someone who's got a question up to this point?
Mister, can you repeat the?
Is there someone who's got a question, guys? Sia, is it you who's speaking? Do you have a question?
Mister, never mind, Mister.
Okay, so that means we can now move to the second part now.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm just going to remove all of this. So remember, for now, you don't necessarily need to fully understand everything. I always say it only makes sense when you start solving problems. But for now, because this is a presentation, you just need to make sure that you listen very carefully. And again, most importantly, you understand what I'm explaining for now. So you will understand better as we solve some problems. So in this case, that's where you are given the turning point and 1 point. So what does it mean when they say in case you are given the turning point and 1 point? Let's say, for example, you've got a Cartesian plane. This is the x, this is the y-intercept, and you've got something similar to that. So 1 point, guys, it could be any point along that function. Doesn't matter whether it's that point there, doesn't matter whether it's a point there. Remember, when I say a point, that's where you're given the x and y coordinates. There, they can just say this is 3. Obviously, you know if it's 3 there, in terms of the coordinates, that's where x is 0 and then your y is 3. So a point similar to that one, you will be given a point which could be, let's say, a 6, and the y value maybe being a negative number, which could be negative 4. So can you see you are given the y and the x value? So that is 1 point which is being given. What about the turning points? So in terms of the turning point, you know, guys, the turning point is that point where your graph changes direction. It has been moving in that direction, then it turns there. So we call that point TP, which is the turning point. So in case if you are given the turning point and 1 point, this is the formula that you use. So let's say maybe this is the graph of a G, for example. So that means you are going to have G of x, which is equals to A into x plus P close squared plus Q. So in case if you are given a function, guys, and that function when you look at it, you see the turning point being given. Let's say, for example, the turning point there, what is it? Let's say it's 4. And then the y value, let's say it's 7. So you can see you've got the turning point, and again, as an example, you've got 1 point. That means this is the formula that you use to determine an equation of that given function. So, for those of you who are attending my lesson for the very first time today, I've done a lesson yesterday where I completely explain what that A means, what that P means, what that Q means. So most of the information that I've explained in my previous lesson, you will understand in summary when I solve exam type of questions, because obviously in today's lesson I'm only focusing on determining the equation of a given function. So in yesterday's lesson, I was teaching how to plot a function when you're given an equation. So we are just doing a reverse of what we did in yesterday's lesson. And again, I do record these lessons. So in case if you missed my previous lessons, you can still be able to catch up. Just request for a link and then I'll send it to you. So guys, before I move to the second bullet, do you all understand everything that I've explained so far?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So someone remember to mute your mic. So
How babalik?
who is this? A favor. Is it favor? Remember to mute your mic. If I mute it from my side, you will never be able to communicate until the end of this lesson. So guys, just make sure to control your mic,
Can
because
you
otherwise
please
if I
start
mute
over?
it,
But maybe, like, I want to know some of the things. I'm struggling.
sorry, what's the question? I see someone is commenting on the lesson. What's the question?
Ako
Okay,
phakise. Ba tla ka tshela direct. Wena ha o
so
bone ntho e tlo ka hlaya.
I'm going to mute a favor from my side. Let me just quickly. Oh, it seems like she went out. Okay, no, it's fine. So guys, remember to mute your mic in case if you're not commenting on the lesson. So I'm just going to remove all of this. So what I need to explain now is the second bullet, which says substitute the coordinates of the turning point P and Q. So remember, that general formula is y, it's equals to a into x plus p close squared plus q. So this is the formula that you use when you're given the turning point and just 1 point. So they say you substitute the coordinates of the turning point. So let's say, for example, you've got something similar to that. And this is maybe that point there being, let's say, -2, and this one being -5. -5. So this is your turning point. When that bullet says substitute the coordinates of the turning point, it means you need to substitute your P and your Q. So remember, guys, between these two values, which one is your P, which one is your Q? So can you see P is there with that X, which means a P is your X coordinate. Which one is your Q, guys? So your Q is the Y value of the turning point. So a Q is your Y value. which means when you substitute your P and Q, or when you substitute your turning points, so in place of P, you are going to substitute -2. So in place of Q, you are going to substitute -5. So you are most likely to make a mistake when you substitute, guys. Very, very much important. Remember, at all times when you substitute, put whatever that you're substituting in brackets. So that part, it's very much important in a sense that you need to be able to identify your P and Q. So bullet number 3 says substitute the given point. So what I've explained just now is that part of the turning point. So the other thing that you need to do is to substitute that one point. So it could be that point there, it could be a point somewhere there, a point somewhere there, any point along that function, guys. So this is where you substitute that point. So obviously, let's say, for example, it was the point where the y value, the x value, maybe let's say is 3, and then the y value there, let's say it's 4. So this is x and y. So this is where you substitute your x value, which is going to be 3, and this is where you substitute your y value, which is going to be 4. So guys, up to so far, everything that I've explained, does it make sense to everyone, or is there someone who's got a question?
Mr. Can you please repeat it for the last time, Mr.?
Okay, so let me then remove all of these and explain using a different scenario. So remember to mute your mic. I've got that part. So you said, let's say maybe this is the graph of h of x. Remember, a function is plotted. We plot a function on a Cartesian plane which has the x-axis and the y-axis. So let's say this is the turning point, and they say your turning point, let's say, is 2 and 4. And they just give you one point there, which is maybe x is -3, y is -2. So they say if you are given the turning point and one point, you use this formula. So can you see you've got your turning point there and you have one point there. So let's now substitute from that formula that we know, which is the formula that we'll be using. We've got y is equals to a into x. What is the x value of our turning point? Remember, the coordinates for the turning point is P and Q. So P represents the x value and Q represents the y value of the turning point. So that means this is the x value, this is the y value, this is P, this is Q. I hope you understand that part. So let's substitute our P value. So that means our P value is 2. Then you squared, which is that squared from the original formula. Plus, what is the Q value? The Q value is 4. So now we have substituted the given turning point. So the next thing that we do is to substitute one point which is being given. Where is that point? This is that point. Remember, always the coordinates is x first, then y second. So what is the y value there? It's -2, which is equals to a we don't know, into what is the x value? The x value is -3. This is that plus 2 squared plus 4. So in this case also, you had to substitute everything so that you solve for the value of a. After you get the value of a, that's when you can write your equation as y is equals to, you can write it in that form or whichever form that the question specify you to write in that specific form. So they can say, the question can say, you are given this function, determine an equation and represent it in that form, or represent it in that form of ax squared plus bx plus c. So a secret here is that you just need to calculate the value of a. Then once you calculated the value of a, you will be able to then write an equation either in that form or in this form. So I'm not sure if this time around it made sense. And again, in case if there's someone who's got a question, you can just ask that question before we move to the next part of our lesson for today.
So how are we going to solve the A? We're going to open the set one to 3 plus 4, then the sum.
I'm failing to hear. Who's speaking? Is it Lerato? I'm failing to hear you. I'm not sure if you've got your mic on loudspeaker, but can you repeat that question again?
So I'm asking, so how are we going to solve for A? Are we going to open the bracket or with
Oh, so you want to know how are we going to solve for the value of A?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so in terms of how to solve for the value of A, it's very simple. I'll explain that part when we do the problem for today. So what I need to quickly do now is to explain that last part of the information that I sent in the group. From there, we're going to do an example where we solve all the questions.
Yes.
So does it mean we can now move on to the last part before we do one example, guys?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let me remove all of this. So just remove all of that, and then from there, let's see. They say given the coordinates of 3 points on a parabola. So let's say this is a Cartesian plane. We've got y, we've got x-axis. So let me just make a sketch, something similar to that, and say this is the graph of f. And they say in this case where you are given you are given the coordinates of 3 points on a parabola. Remember, it could be that point there, another point, maybe let's say there, another point somewhere there. As long as it's just 3 points, then you use this formula, which is y is equals to ax squared plus bx plus c. This is that same formula that we used when I started with this lesson. So if you are given 3 points, you use that formula. So one of the given point is the y-intercept. Therefore, C is given. So what they are saying is, in case if you're given 3 points, one of those points is going to be the y-intercept. And we know based on yesterday's lesson that the y-intercept refers to the C value. Then they say substitute the coordinates of the other 2 points into this formula. Then you solve the 2 equations simultaneously for A and B. So this type of a problem, it doesn't in most cases make it to exam questions. So they normally give you the information that we discussed previously and ask you to determine an equation. So this one is a question, but on another level. So I think when we get to this type of a problem, you will understand it better when we solve the problems. So now, Lerato, let's get to that point where you see how we solve for that value of A. So I've got this. I'm not sure if you will all be able to see if it fits on the screen. So you can see there is number 1, number 2. I'll just hide that part. So do you now see everything on the screen? Can you see that part which says given a graph given? Can you see that part given a f of x is equals to that? Can you see that part?
Yes, sir.
If I do that, are you still able to see that part? Shreyas, are you still able to see that part given f of x?
Yes, sir.
Okay, in that case, it's fine. Someone has got their mics unmuted. So remember, guys, to mute your mic. So in this case, you've got a function drawn on a Cartesian plane. So this function is called f of x. So just excuse me for a few seconds. I want to mute what's her name? Xn something. I'll just mute him. It's unfortunate for the rest of this lesson, they won't be able to communicate. So it's fine. You are given this graph, which is f of x, it's equals to 2 minus x squared. So remember, guys, always when you're given a function, just make sure that you rewrite that function in the standard form. Which standard form? This is the standard form in which you write a parabola. It's ax squared plus bx plus c. So this is the first trick part that examiners like using. They don't give you an equation which is in the standard form. They try to give it in a funny way. But you need to remember that you have to rewrite it in the standard form, which means the whole of that function is the same as f of x, which is equals to. So this is the first part which is represented by that. So obviously your a value is that negative invisible 1x squared. So that part is that one there with x, which means your b value is negative invisible 1x. Then your c value, which is the constant or which is a number, is that one. So what is the sign for that number? Is positive. So that means there you've got positive 2. So remember, guys, based on what I've explained, I said that A, it tells more about the shape of the graph. So if your A value is negative, then you are going to have a sad shape. So for it to be a sad shape, that's if we draw that. So if your A value is positive, that's where you've got a smiling shape. For it to make sense, that's if we do that. So this is a question to someone who attend my lesson for the first time today. So whoever who's attending my lesson for the first time today, that function, are we having a sad or a positive or a smiling shape there for that parabola?
Mr. I think set face.
It's a set shape. So why or what makes it to be a sad shape?
Because our x value is negative.
So whoever was speaking, not necessarily our x value, but we say our a value, it's negative. And what is the value of a?
-1.
100%. So the value of a
Negative
is
one.
-1. So if it was -2, it doesn't matter whether it's -7, it's -5, it's negative whatever. What matters the most is that for that a value to be negative, then we're going to have a sad shape. For it to be positive, then it's a smiling shape. So I'm glad we are all on the same page on that one. So I'm going to help you guys to provide answers for that based on today's lesson. So before we start with the question, I want to teach you guys on how to interpret the given function. So there you can see I drew everything in that black marker. But now I want you to see a function on a different eye. So firstly, guys, when you look at a given function, just think of this. You have a Cartesian plane. So start with a Cartesian plane, which is the y-axis and the x-axis. So just tell yourself that a function is drawn on a Cartesian plane, which is represented by a different color. In this case, is that color. So now what they are going to do is to draw a function. So this is now a function, or this is a graph. So ask yourself this question: what is the name of that graph? Or what is that name represented by? Or what is that graph represent? So that graph is represented by letter F. So that means a graph can be given any letter. It could be the graph of A, the graph of B, C, D, E, F, G, any letter from A up to Z. But we know very well that in most cases they like using graph of F, graph of G, graph of H, or maybe graph of K, or whatever. So that means in most cases you'll be dealing with graph of X, F of X, G of X, H of X, K of X. Then the other thing that you need to ask yourself is, what is the type of that function? We know very well, obviously, that this is a parabola. That's what we're focusing on. So now that this is a parabola, is the a value of that parabola positive or negative? So because it's making a sad shape, then it means the a value of that function is negative. That's what we know. Then again, ask yourself this question. Remember, guys, this is the standard formula. So it's ax squared plus bx plus c. So we made a comment on the a value to say the a value is going to be a negative a value. Then we make a comment on the c value. So this is a question to you guys. Doesn't matter if you've been attending my lessons since last year or you started today. That a value, the c value, is it positive or is it negative? And give a reason for that answer.
Mistake. Can you repeat the question, please?
So the question is, that c value, is it positive or is it negative? If it's positive, why? If it's negative, why? Or how do you see that is negative, or how do you see that is positive?
You see it by the sign, sir.
First comment, second comment.
The graph.
Okay, it's fine. So I'll just explain to you that part. So remember, guys, you might need to watch a lesson that I did yesterday. So I'm glad I've got these lessons recorded because you will be able to catch up. So remember, guys, we said the A value tells us about the shape of the graph, if it's going to be a sad or a happy shape. So the C value tells us about the Y intercept. Never forget this, guys. So the C value tells us about the y-intercept. What is the y-intercept? The y-intercept is where your graph touches the y-axis. So this is the y-intercept, and that point is the C value. So my question again, is the C value a negative or positive? If it's negative, how do you see that it's negative? If it's positive, how do you see that it's positive? So when you answer the question, firstly mention your name, then give an answer.
My name is Manda. The C value is positive because I think that the graph is turning on the y axis where it is positive, on the positive side. Yeah.
100%. So in short, Mandla, the C value is positive. Why? Is because the y-intercept is above the origin. It's above the origin. So whatever that you said, it's 100% correct. So the shortest way of explaining is to say it's because the y-intercept, or the point where that graph touches the y-axis, is above the origin. So this is the origin, guys. That point is the origin. So if our graph, it was something like that, so that means our C value was going to be negative. Why? Because the y-intercept is below the origin. So remember, guys, when we get to this point where we only focus on exam questions, you will have a better understanding. For now, just be aware that there's something called A, there's something called B, there's something called C, and you need to know what A tells us about the function and what C tells us about the function. The last part that I need to explain is the axis of symmetry. So the axis of symmetry, guys, is the x value of the turning point. So this is x and y. So the x value of the turning point is what we call the axis of symmetry, which is represented by that dotted line. So if you've got that graph, this is the turning point. So the x value of the turning point, that is your axis of symmetry. So if you've got a graph similar to that, then you do a broken line along the turning point. So the x value of TP, let's say the x value there is 4, and maybe the y value, let's say it's 7. So the axis of symmetry, you say x is equals to 4. Why 4? Because 4 is the x value of the turning point. And remember, turning point, this is P, this is Q. Or otherwise, this is X, this is y. So I think now let's try to answer questions based on that given graph. So this is the graph that you're given, guys. And the question says determine the coordinates of A, B, and C. So they want you to determine the coordinates of A, B, and C. I'm not sure if you guys understand the question before I even attempt to answer that question. The most important thing is for you guys to be able to understand what the question wants you to provide. So, do you guys understand the question, or do you need an interpretation of what the question wants you to calculate?
Interpretate.
Understand, sir.
So, for that one person who needs an interpretation, when they say determine the coordinates, just know always that the coordinates, they want you to give x and y. So this is the first part that you need to understand. When they say the coordinates, that word coordinates means x and y. So which coordinates do they want? They want the coordinates of A, the coordinates of B, and C. So in your final answer, you must say A, that's where x is whatever, and that is whatever. That is whatever, that is whatever. So that's what you need to provide as part of your answer. So let's see. Do we know something about A? Do we know something about B? Do we know something about C? So this is my question to you guys. Do we know something about A? Do we know something about B? Do we know something about C?
Mr. A, the x value is 0 and B, the y value is 0. Then C, the x value is 0.
Do you all agree with that statement?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, 100%. So now that we agree, let me quickly do this. So we are saying A, what is it? The x value is unknown, but the y value is that. So for B, they say, what is it? You said, what is it? This is 0 and y, it's unknown. Then for C, you said, what is it? X is unknown, and then that is 0. So because we are given a function over there, remember, in its standard form, I'll just rewrite it there. Its standard form, this is f of x, which is equals to negative x squared minus x. This is plus 2. So this is the standard form. So what are you guys saying? You are saying for that point A, the x value is unknown, but the y value is 0. So we use that equation, guys, to then calculate for the x value. So this is how you do it. We say y. So remember, f of x is y, guys. So y is equals to x squared minus x plus 2. So you guys are saying y is 0 and x is unknown. So that means I'm going to substitute 0 there. Why? Because you say for the coordinates of A, y is 0. So that's why I substitute y there. So I'm going to equate this to all of that and then solve for the value of x. So when you solve for the value of s, what is it? For the value of x, always if this is a quadratic equation, guys, make sure it's in the standard form. For it to be in the standard form, that's where you have positive a over there, which means you can just divide everything by negative a, which is negative 1a, or you can just change the sign of every term. So that means negative 0 is still the same as 0. Then you change that one, it becomes positive x squared. You change that one, it becomes positive x. You change that one, it becomes negative 2. So you can now factorize. Is there someone who's got the factors for that? I think it's 2 and 1. The bigger number takes the sign of the middle term, which is a positive. For us to have a negative number there, that's if you multiply negative 1 by that. So that means you can now say this equals to 0 and that equals to 0. So x minus 1 is equals to 0, or x plus 2 is equals to 0. Then you solve for x, which means x is equals to, you transpose, it changes a sign, it becomes positive 1. Then you do the same there. You've got your x, which is equals to, you transpose, then it's equals to negative 2. So can you see, guys, we've got two values of x. Is there someone who wants to guess what does it mean when we have two values of x?
I think C will, the value of x will be 1. Then A, the value of x will be negative 2.
100%. So do you guys understand that part? Just make sure that you understand what we are doing there. Are you not, guys, being confused by C being positive 1 and A being negative 2? Does it make sense to everyone?
Sir.
Yes, sir.
100%. So there we've got negative 2, there we've got positive 1. So now how do we get the C value? Is there someone who wants to guess how we get the C value?
The C value or the P value,
The B coordinates. Yes, it doesn't matter whichever way you explain, it's fine. You can either tell how we get the coordinates of B or the C value. So remember, guys, this is what we call the coordinates. These are the coordinates. So when we talk about 1 point or the Y value, it's Y and this is X. But this is called the coordinates. So maybe let me change my question and say, what do you remember about the C value, guys, from this formula? What do you guys remember about the C value? That C value.
That form, C value, sir.
Say again.
I think it tells us about the y-axis.
So it tells us about the y-intercept.
Sir.
Shreyas, you wanted to say something?
Sir, I can't hear you well, sir.
Anyone else
I
who's
think
also failing
the
to hear
volume
me?
is soft, sir.
Let me try to make some adjustments. Let me first confirm: is there someone else who's also experiencing the same challenge that Shreyas is experiencing?
No, sir.
Shreyas, just remind me in terms of which last part did you clearly hear me, so that I can quickly take you through up to where we are now.
Sir, how you got -2, sir, and +1?
Oh, so but did you understand that part of A being -2 and C being +1?
No, sir.
Okay, so quickly I'm going to explain Shreya. So the reason for that is because, remember, this is the origin. So from the origin in that direction, you have negative values. From the origin in that direction, you have positive values. So when we calculated for the x values, we got two values of x. The other one was -2, and the other one was +1. So between these two values, Shreyas, which one is going to be on this side and which one is going to be on this side?
Sir, -2, sir, on A, and +1 on C.
100%. So that's how we assigned A to be -2, C to be +1. So do you now get it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, 100%. So now let's continue. So now my question was the C value, which is that C value. Someone said the C value tells us about the y-intercept. That is 100%. So my question is, that C value, is it negative or positive? And again, give a reason for your answer.
Positive, because our graph touches the y-intercept above the origin.
100%. So the reason to that is because our graph cuts or touches the y-axis above the origin. So remember, guys, this line is called a y-axis. That line is called x-axis. So when it touches that line, we call it the y-axis. So that point is the intercept. Intercept, it means where two lines touch or cross each other. So that's 100%. So now, when you calculate the C value or the B coordinates, you substitute 0 into that same formula. Just do the same that you did when you calculated the value of A and C. So what is the Y value, guys? The Y value, we don't know. What is the X value? We know the X value is 0. So wherever we see X, we just substitute 0 plus 2. So what is this when you punch it on a calculator?
+2.
+2. So can you see, guys, that means the coordinates of B is +2. So can you see what we meant when we said the C value is actually the y-intercept? It's because when you substitute there with 0, you are going to get that number anyway. So if it was 7 there, even when we substituted 0 there, it was still going to be 7. If it was 10, it was still going to be 10. If it was 30, our y was still going to be 30. Does it make sense to everyone?
Sir.
Yes, sir.
So I'm going to remove of this, but just remember that our value there is 2. So the next, which is the last question, says determine the coordinates of the turning point. So this is the turning point. I'm not sure if you remember from our yesterday's lesson. We said when you determine the turning point, you use this formula. This is the formula for you to determine the turning point. The x value of the turning point is negative b over 2a. So what is the value of a? What is the value of b?
The value of B is
Mr. The value of B is -1. The value of A is also -1.
100%. So remember, guys, those values of a and b come from that original or that given function. So remember, there we've got negative x squared. It's not even a plus, but it's a minus x plus 2. So can you see? We've got invisible 1 there. We've got invisible 1 there. So that means our a value is equals to -1. Our b value is also equals to -1, which means when we substitute there, is that negative from the original formula over, in brackets, your b value is -1, your a value is -1, but remember that 2 over there. So when you punch all of that on a calculator, what are you getting? Be careful when you punch on a calculator, guys. I know some of you might get a positive number. So what is that, guys?
Positive 1/2.
Someone is getting positive 1 over 2. The other one, what are you getting?
-1/3.
-1 over 2.
-1/2, sir.
Shreyas, what are you getting? -1 over 2. The other one, what are you getting?
1/2.
It's -1/2, sir.
So you noticed your mistake, ne?
Yes.
So be very, very careful, guys. When it comes to substitutions, be very, very careful. So I'm also getting -1 over 2 because that cancels, that times that is 2, that times that, it becomes that -1. So that means the x value of the turning point is -1 over 2. And remember, that x value is the axis of symmetry. So it means there it's actually -1 over 2. So we now need to find the y value of the turning point. So for you to determine the y value of the turning point, in yesterday's lesson, if you remember very well, we said you substitute whatever that you got into the original formula. So that means y is equals to -1 over 2 squared minus -1 over 2 plus 2. So what is that, guys? And for you to know that you've done a correct calculation, you must get a number which is above 2. Why? Because the turning point is above the y-intercept. Very, very much important, ladies and gentlemen. So what answer are you getting when you punch all of that?
It's +9/4.
Someone is getting +9/4. The
And
other guys, what are you getting?
Negative
Positive
+9/4.
+9/4.
So 100%. So that means all of us are getting +9/4, which means for us to answer the question, guys, we must say D is -1 over 2 and 9/4. This is what we call the coordinates. In this way, you have answered the question because they said determine the coordinates of the turning point. So does it make sense to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So let me just do something very, very quick. Something very, very quick. And then from there, we'll end our lesson for today. So this is what I want to do quickly, guys. Let's say you've got a Cartesian plane, you've got something similar to that, you've got y, you've got x. Let's say this is 3, and again, this is 5, this is -1. So this is that point there, this is that point there, this is that point there, this is the graph of h. And they say determine an equation for that function. So this is what I said, Lerato. You have y is equals to a into x minus x1, x minus x2. So just remember this formula from the notes that I've explained. I just want to explain to you how you get the a value if you are given 2 x-intercepts and 1 point. Let's substitute. What is or maybe let me do it this way. So these are the x-intercepts that we have. Do you agree that we've got -1 and 0, and again we've got 5 and 0? And that 1 point, do you agree that we have 0 and 3? If you don't agree, then I will explain. But if you agree, I'm going to continue.
I agree, sir.
I agree, sir.
Mr. Can you please explain?
So remember, the x-intercepts, that's where your function touches the x-axis. So that point is -1, which means this is where y is 0. So we have -1 where y is 0. Is that 0 from the origin? So for any point that lies along that line, then it means y is 0. Same as that one there, x is 5, y is 0. So for that vertical line, for any point that lies on that line, that's where what is it, x is equals to 0. Then the y value is whatever point, in this case is 3. Does it make sense now?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay, so let's now substitute. Remember, I want to explain or answer that question Lerato had to say, how do we solve for the value of a? Let's substitute. So remember, I said these 2 points, you use them to substitute there on x1 and x2. So that means we have y is equals to a into x minus, what is x1, guys? It's -1. Be very, very careful to substitute that in brackets. And again, we've got x minus, what is x2? It's 5. So you can just substitute it as 5. So now let's substitute again. We now substitute that 1 point. So what is y? Y is 3. So I'm going to put 3 there and say this is equals to a into, what is x? X is 0. You put 0 there. You have minus into -1. You close. You have, what is x? X is 0 minus 5. So this x for that 1 point is the x that you substitute there and there. But for this part is different, that's why it's x1. For this one is different, that's why it's x2. So this is going to be your x1, this is going to be your x2, this is going to be your x, this is going to be your y. Then, Lerat, what you do, you punch all of that on a calculator. What is it when you punch it on a calculator? So I've got 0
-5.
minus into, let's see, -1 flows into -5.
-5, sir.
100%. So we're getting -5, which means
Negative
this is
5, sir.
3. It's equals to -5a. So we divide by -5 on both sides. Why did we have to divide by -5? It's because we wanted that to cancel. So that means our a value is equals to -3 over 5. So can you see, guys? This is how you calculate for the value of a. So let's say the question said give the equation for that. So because you calculated the value of a, it doesn't mean you are done. So let me just get another board to continue. So it doesn't mean you are done. This is now what you need to do. Remember, guys, the equation is y is equals to what was it? It's a into x minus x1 close x minus x2. So y, x, and x, you don't substitute there. This is after you calculated for the value of a. So you just substitute your value of a, your x1 and x2. Then you solve and write it in the standard form. So you just say y is equals to, what is our a? We said it's -3 over 5 into, you write x. What was that one? We said it's negative, what was it? Was it -1? And then you write x as it is minus, that was 5. So what you do is just to simplify all of this until it's in that standard form. So you're going to say y is equals to, obviously, this thing, guys, is the same as +1. I'm not sure if you agree, because it's negative into -1. This is the same as a +1. Do you guys agree with me on that one?
Sir.
Yes, sir.
So let me just write +1 there. So Lerat, this is what you'll be doing. You're saying that times that, that times that, this times that, that times that. So that means you have x squared, that times that, what is it? It's 5x. Then this times that is +1x. This times that is -5. Then you continue with the simplification. So you work out the like terms. So obviously you have this, I think it's -4x, then -5. Then what you do now is to multiply by a, multiplied by a, multiplied by a. So you now have a y which is equals to -3 over 5x squared. Then what is that times that? One thing for sure, it's a positive number. And then again, what is 4 times 3? I think it's what is it? It's 12. It's going to be 12 over 5x. Then you multiply that again by that. One thing for sure is positive because of that negative and that negative. Then 5 and 5 will
3.
cancel. Then you have +3. So this is how you determine an equation of that function when you are given the x-intercepts and 1 point. It's a lengthy calculation, but it's given a lot of marks. So towards exams, I'm going to train you on how to do that multiple times so that you will be ready to answer that question. So Lerato and everyone, did I answer that question of how do we calculate for the a value and how to determine an equation of a parabola?
Yes, Mr.
Yes, sir.
So quickly, guys, for the last time, let me do another one where I use that other formula. So it's also going to be a quick calculation. So remember, guys, this lesson is being recorded. Going to post it, and you can catch up at a later stage. So let's say, for example, we had something similar to this. So this time around, let's have a smiling shape. Let me just create some space there so that I'll start the calculation on this board. So let's say we have something similar to that. We've got that is given as, let's say, x it's equals to 1, and again we are given that as negative, let's say negative 4, as negative 4, and again let's say they give us that point there, and this is point what is it, point K, where x it's negative 5 and y is 4. So this is the graph of H, and then this is the y-intercept, this is the x-intercept. So I just drew that from my head, guys, just so that I can explain to you how you determine an equation. So remember, guys, in this case, can you see, you were not directly given the turning point, but because they said axis of symmetry, x is equals to -1, and also they've given you that point to say it's -4, then same time you can just say my TP is actually 1 and -4. So this is how the examiner will try to be tricky. So you just need to be aware that when you have axis of symmetry, and again you've got that point given, which is the y value of the turning point, this is the coordinates of your turning point, and there you've got 1 point, which means you can now use this formula of ax plus p close plus q. So do you guys understand everything that I've explained so far over there?
Yes, sir.
No, sir.
Yes, sir.
For someone who doesn't understand, which part would you like me to explain?
The way we find the TP.
Say again, Karabo, which part?
How did you know that the coordinates of the turning point is 1 is to -4?
Okay, now I get the question. So let me do that again, and maybe this time around let me do it that way. Let's say this is -7, and they say the axis of symmetry, let's say they say x is equals to 4. So Lerato, they don't need to tell you that the turning points is whatever and whatever. So examiner will try to be tricky. So always I say the axis of symmetry is your p value. The y value at the turning point is your q. So because the axis of symmetry, x is equals to 4, that means my x value of the turning point is 4. And that one there, which is that point, which is -7, this is the y value of the turning point. So the same goes for that one, because they say the axis of symmetry is 1. That means my x value of the turning point is 1. So that x is equals to 1 is that point, guys. Is that point there is 1. And the y value is given there, which is -4. So these are the coordinates of the turning point. Remember, the coordinates is just a point where you know the x value and you know the y value. So does it make sense now? Or does it still need some explanation?
No, sir.
Okay, so now that we agree on the turning points, Lerato, do you now agree or does it make sense, that part?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now that we've got a 1 point, which is that one and the turning points, then we can substitute. So this is how you do it. You say y is equals to a into x. What is the value of p?
The value of p is positive 1.
Answer.
100% is positive 1 squared. What is the value of q?
It's -4.
100%. So the value of q is -4. Then from here, Shreyas,
4.
what you do is to then substitute that 1 point. So you substitute y there, x there. What is that 1 point that we can use to substitute?
So we can use -5.
100%. So we
You can
say we use the coordinates of k, which means y is 4, a into x is -5 plus 1 squared minus 4. Does it make sense, that part, to everyone?
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes, sir.
So you now punch you punch this on a calculator, and you can same time transpose that one. So what I'm saying is you have 4, you transpose, it becomes positive 4, it's equals to a what is that? I think this is 16.
16.
It's 16, eh?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So that
Yes,
means
sir.
it's 16 a. So this plus this, what is it? It's 8. So you've got 16a. So you divide by by 16 on both sides so that it cancels, and your a is equals to what is that? Is it 1 over 4 or 1
It's
over 2?
1/2.
It's positive 1 over 2. So
It's 1
uh,
over 2.
So can you now see that we have the value of a? So you can say y is equals to positive 1 over 2 into x plus, what did we say? It's our y value, that value, our p value we said is 1, and then this was -4. Do you still remember this part? Or does this part make sense to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Because we just
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
substituted the value of a. So now what you do is just to simplify that. So it's more like after finding the value of a, you then go back to this stage where you substituted that and this. Then you write x as x, y as y, but you substitute a. So why do you do this? Because you then want to simplify or rewrite it in the other form. So can you see, in case if they said determine an equation of that parabola in this form, they're going to specify and say in this form of that p squared plus q. Then if they wanted it in this form, you just leave it there. It's done. There's nothing you can do because already you calculate the value of a, and you now have q, and again you have p. But sometimes they can be tricky and give you some more marks and say give it in that form of a x squared plus bx plus c. So when you get to this stage, you continue. That means you're going to say y is equals to, you still have half, you have 2 of that, you still have -4, which is x plus that, x plus that. I hope this part makes sense to everyone. So you just simplify. So obviously You have that by that, that by that. I think this is going to be half into that by that is going to be x squared. That times that is x, times that is x. So you're going to have 2x in between. Then you're going to have 1, and you still have minus 4 there. Then what you do is to do that by that, that by that, that by that. So you have half x squared, half times 2. Obviously, what is that, guys? I think it's 1. So you just have 1x. Then half times that, what is it? Is positive half still. Then you have that minus 4, which is that 1. So finally, you have y is equals to half x squared plus x. Then you calculate that. What is that one? I think it's what is it?
Negative
-7 over 2, ne?
Yes.
So can you see, guys? You have that, so you can just to show that you know your story. If they said this is the graph of f, then just to be impressive, you can say f of x is equals to half x squared plus x minus 7 over 2. So if they wanted it in that that form, you can probably score yourself 6 marks out of that question. So, guys, this brings us to the end of our lesson for today. I'm not sure before I end this lesson if there's someone who's got a question.
No question, Mr. Mara. Mr. Can I ask, when are we going to attend physical science? Or this group is for maths only?
So, Sia, probably let's say over the weekend. So the plan is to find an assistant who will be performing physics lessons. So I'm not sure if you guys will mind to have 2 lessons per day. You might find that the first lesson starts a bit early, and then we have something like 2 hours break, and then after we do mathematics. I'm just not sure if this is going to put too much pressure on you guys, or are you available? Would you like us to have a second tutor to have 2 lessons per day? Will it work for everyone?
Yes, sir, but
Yes, I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, it will be cool, sir.
So that means you guys you are up for 2 lessons per day, ne?
yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So what
It's a bit.
time are you guys home? Because obviously the first lesson might start anytime after, probably after 5, so that's when everyone is at home. So in case, remember, in case if you miss a lesson, you can still catch up because it should be recorded. But because I think we might be running out of time, and again your June exams are around the corner, so I think it is necessary for us to have those 2 lessons. But that obviously depends on your feedback on your side, in case if you will be able to attend 2 lessons per day of obviously 1 hour each lesson. So you can just spare yourself 2 hours to attend maths and physics. So will that be fine?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
100%. So if it works perfectly, then we'll see if we can still add some more subjects, because I know I've got rich information with regards to map work, which is something that I'm also going to teach you guys. But obviously towards the end of the year, that's if I know you are confident with mathematics and physics. And also we'll just be having some chances where we can somehow squeeze in geography and life sciences, so I can still find some more
Accounting,
tutors to
sir.
be assisting with those. Also, if you suggest accounting, but everything will be dependent on your response. If you do attend lessons if you are engaging, and again, if you do catch up in case if you missed some lessons, then that's when I'm going to work towards finding some more tutors. So everything can still be done in the same group, but at different times. Otherwise, we can still have multiple groups where accounting staff will be doing accounting on their side, maths, physics, and so on. So the most important part that I also want to include is that sometime during the year, I will bring some guys from a university, some at workplaces, who will be coming to answer some of the questions that you might be having. Because obviously, some of you guys, you want to study medicine, the others engineering, education, and whatever. So I'll just be bringing some guests on a regular basis where you'll just have your list of questions and ask those guys to guide in terms of how they got to varsity, how did they apply, what percentages they got from which subjects, and again, how's varsity in terms of teaching style and everything. Those kind of questions. So I think as time goes on, and in case if you guys are responsive, then we can have that type of arrangements and also have some guests in one of our lessons, either once a month or twice a month, something like that. So do you think that will satisfy everyone in the group?
Sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, guys, then this brings us to the end of our lesson for today. So just make sure that as soon as I end this lesson,
Sir.
just yes, Karabu.
Don't forget to I forgot.
Okay, no, it's fine, Sia. You can still ask the question in the group. But what I wanted to say is, everyone who attended up to this far, just make sure to raise your hand in the group. Don't say anything. Just raise your hand. Then I will know that you attended. Because if you comment by saying I attended, even those who didn't, they will understand what we're talking about and just say attended. So I just want to be aware of who attended until the end of the lesson. So you just raise your hand and leave it there. So guys, I will see you on our next lesson.
Mister, don't forget to send that lesson we've done yesterday, Mister.
Oh yes, I will still need to post that lesson. So I'm just not sure if I'll manage to post it over the weekend. But one thing for sure, it is recorded and I'll make sure that it's posted and share in the group. I'll also share this one. Okay, cheers guys.
Bye, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Mister.